lovely Steve Bingham is here today for us, manning the chat window. Marvellous. He's also going to produce a nice virtual background soon, aren't you, Steve?
Oh, well, I'm working on it slowly.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Kate. We're very proud of our backgrounds. We really are. It's really.
I thought my normal room background was already quite nice, but I'm going to look for cake.
There's not enough things
coffee
to eat and drink. Yes, exactly.
Okay,
I mean, it's Sunday afternoon. So here we are, guys, again in lockdown, but really happy to be back doing these webinars because it's been a really great way to keep in touch with you all. And it's been wonderful actually reaching out to people who normally we wouldn't get to see if they couldn't make it to the summer school or some of the days that we have, the special days. So it's great to have you all here. We can see any questions that you put in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And also you can chat in the chat window to Steve as much as you like and to each other. If you want to keep it private, just between particular people, you can just pull the pull down list. You can choose to speak to all the panelists or just individual people. So if you don't want to clog up the chat window, that's great.
Nicole, does everyone know how to bring up the chat window? Because
it's a very good question. I suspect Phil may not. So I'm going to tell you now. The chat window is at the bottom of your screen. You have the picture of the microphone and the camera and all that's the chat window. So that's just for chat. And if you have specific questions for us today, please do put them in that Q&A window so we don't miss them. If we do run out of time, of course, we'll answer your emails afterwards. You answer your questions as an email afterwards. But just before we get started, I wanted to just go over a couple of things. I've had lots of people. Oh, look at that, Steve. Gosh.
That's nice. Where's that, Steve?
My small coffee shop that I own.
Really?
I want to go there.
It's won some awards for the quality of the conversation. Yeah.
And the leather sofas.
It looks rather empty of things to eat and drink, though, Steve.
Well, that's okay, because right at the back there, you see, I've got my baristas about to come and make me some nice coffee and cakes. And
I want to go to that, but I just generally want to go out.
I know. We could have the summer school there, actually, at Steve at your place, or even Phil at yours. Let's go to Fortnum and Mason's. Sponsor us.
Yeah. The advantage here as well, it's got a beach down the road as well, which is quite nice in the summer for the summer school. So.
Oh.
But for £35, you can have a cup of tea and a biscuit here. I mean, it's
bargain.
A snip, you know.
Bargain, Phil. It's a bargain.
So today we're going to be talking about lots of different things that you're going to have a chance to tell us what you would like to be in our webinars that are going to carry on now throughout the year. So, but before we get started, lots of people had already emailed me saying, can I just remind everybody about Zoom settings and what are the best things now? So Zoom has changed a lot over the last year. We're really glad they've noticed that musicians would like to actually be able to teach online. They've really improved their audio. The first thing to say is always make sure that Zoom is updated. They update randomly, like in the middle of the night, just you're not expecting it. So if you've got a day of teaching, just get up, 15 minutes earlier and check it for updates first. It's the first thing to do. And so then also I've got a rather exciting thing I'm going to share with you, just to remind you how to check those settings. Here it is. Hang on. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Lovely, lovely. Here we go. So there's 3 things that you do.
Oh, that's
here
clever.
at the top. It's high tech, this really is, no expense spared. What you would do is go along to the bottom of the Zoom window. There's the picture of the microphone. There's an arrow to the right of it. You click on the arrow and you get this pop-up box that you're seeing here with select a microphone, select a speaker. At the bottom it says audio settings, and I'm showing my arrow here. You click on that and then this box below appears. Now there's 2 really exciting features here. I was terribly excited when these came out a while back. The first one is suppressing background noise. And what that is, just to remind you, is if somebody's drilling outside your house, if a child is screaming at the computer for homeschooling, if the dog is barking because you haven't fed it, Zoom will cut these things out. They will think that's not part of your meeting, we'll cut them out. Unfortunately, they also think playing piano might be a fan in the background or a dog barking, so it cuts that out too. So because we
when I play piano, it is like a dog barking.
I wasn't going to say, but now you mentioned it. Yeah. So we want to have Zoom not doing that, so that they can hear all of your lovely music. So you do then set suppress background noise to low. Do it for music. If you're chatting like we are now, you probably want it to be on auto, because then it does cut out those things and nobody hears, your husband shouting at your child or whatever. The next thing is the original sound option. If you see under here, music and professional audio, if you tick that box, show in meeting option to enable original sound, what it does is in your Zoom window, a little thing will appear at the top left-hand corner, which says turn on original sound. And it's giving you as much of the actual sound that you would normally be hearing as Zoom can. Now, if in your Zoom window, it says turn on original sound, it means it's not turned on. I hate this. They really could word it better, but they don't. So if you click it and then it says turn off original sound, then it's on. So then you need to...
the cut is in. The cut is good.
Oh my God, so frustrating. So then under here, you can tick high fidelity music mode, because who wouldn't want that? The echo cancellation, you have to be careful with this one. Okay, leave it unticked unless you have headphones on. If you tick it, you must have headphones on. You get a terrible echo going round and round like that otherwise. I'm going to stick this little document into the chat window so you can all download it if you want. But hopefully that just reminds you of how to do it. These settings only work for computers. They don't work for tablets and phones. Tablets and phones, you're very limited on your audio quality. Steve, we've gone into the evening version. This is afternoon tea. It's not a slutty night in a cocktail bar.
I'm just getting in early. You know.
Well, can we move on to yours for cocktails then? I love a cocktail.
Yeah, it's never too early to start with a cocktail on a Sunday afternoon.
So I'm just now putting those details in. No, I'm not. Won't let me put the file in. Damn. Never mind. I'll share it with you afterwards on email, that document. But there you go. So anyone not sure, that's what you want to do with Zoom. Hope it's all going well, everybody. I hope we're feeling a little bit more stable on Zoom than we were 10 months ago. Tell me, how stable are you feeling, Phil?
Well, I'm asked that by my wife on a daily basis, actually. But yeah, it's. I think the third time round, complete lockdown. I think not wives, lockdown. I think the third time round, at least we know what we're letting ourselves in for, so we can be a bit more, have a better sense of direction about what we need to do and how we need to do it. So that's how I feel. So quite positive. Oh, and I see we've had our first question, and Steve is answering already. How do we?
I was going to type an answer, but in fact we can just talk it through. Sure. Pam has asked about the backgrounds. So basically, wherever you have your video camera symbol for starting and stopping your video, there's a little arrow, and one of the options there is choose a virtual background. And then once you're on that, it's fairly self-explanatory. You can add a background, add an image, even add a video if you want to. And I noticed my background doesn't like my hair sometimes, but yeah. So you can add backgrounds, and you just add a picture from your computer, download something off the internet. Nicole, have you got any quick tips, extra tips on that?
No, you just said you could add filth from the internet.
Sorry, did I say what? Phil from the internet.
A filter, yes.
No, add
or Phil.
Phil, you can add video. You can add video as well if you want to really distract your listeners and put them off. Or just like me, you can add a lot of bottles of alcohol.
Great. We've also got a question here from Shoko Middleton. Hello, Shoko. Is the microphone and video of participants automatically muted? So what happens there is you set that in the settings. If you go into the settings for your whole account, it will say whether you want to automatically mute everybody as they come in. So in case people are going to be noisy coming into lessons. Remember, there's also the waiting room option you can set. So if you have one teaching room open all the time and your pupils are going to come in one after the other, you put the waiting room option on. As long as you're signed in with your ID and everything, then you will have a ding dong when they're waiting room, and then you let them in, you would admit them into the waiting room. It just comes up on the screen as admit, and you admit them in when it's their lesson time. So that's another really handy one there. We did have some lovely music to share with you today, some sheet music that you might be interested in buying, but because Zoom doesn't want to let me share a file with you right now, I'd forgotten it wouldn't let me do that on this webinar. I'm going to be adding that also in an email after the webinar today. So that's from Chris Wiggins. So sorry, Chris, about that, but we'll be sharing it with all of you later. And there's a QR code for a discount Who doesn't like a January discount, right? Absolutely. Now, Sarah, tell me, your tea is on your ceiling.
Yeah, this is the thing is when I did mine and I followed Nicole's instructions, you know, to the letter, it said you need a green screen background to be able to import it. Now, I thought I had one, but obviously I only have half one. But then I thought, well, actually, you could then see that I've painted my wall red in lockdown, and maybe you'd like to see my painted wall as well. So, because obviously in lockdown, apart from teaching online and all that, and going for a walk, highlight of the day, the walk, I needed new projects, so I did decorating.
Very good. So that'll be why you'll have something on green on the background behind your teacups and your afternoon tea.
I don't know what that's about.
Yeah. So the green screen, you know, you've all seen the weather ladies, weather men, you know, the way they film them, and they just have a green background behind them. Look, oh, my hand is still weird. They have a green background behind them, and they're pointing at a map which they can't see. It's the same concept. So if you have a piece of green material you can put right behind you, it actually makes the picture clearer. You can see it's a bit fuzzy around my hair. It's not because I haven't made an effort. It's just Zoom. So put green behind you and then have your virtual background like this. You'll just see it a bit more clearly. Also, the light shining at you, it also makes it clearer. Sorry, Steve. Yeah.
No, basically Zoom is being very clever, given the fact that most people using the virtual backgrounds will have a cluttered background anyway. And it's quite clever that it works at all, you know, because you would never try to do that in video. As you say, you would need a green screen. And we got some questions on the chat.
Really?
David is asking about a bit more about Jamulus. I have some advice about that, but it's very negative, so I'm not going to start. Anybody else use Jamulus? My advice is you can't, because there's latency built into the system, and Jamulus cannot get over that. So it can do a certain amount, but it's the limit. And I don't think it'll, even with 5G, ever be particularly useful. But that's just me being a grumpy old man, really. But the fact is that there is latency built into this system that we use called the internet, because every journey that all the signals takes time, and the time builds up, and over about 10 milliseconds or whatever, we notice it, and it becomes almost impossible to then do online rehearsals and play music together, as we all know. And Jamulus tries to fix that, but you either have to be very physically close in terms of that, or have extremely good internet, or have nothing else using your internet at all. And although they're trying to fix it, I personally haven't experienced a situation where it works particularly well. But as I say, I'm not an expert on it, so I can't really help you, David, in terms of better ways to use it. I don't know if any of the other panelists here have success with it.
I don't think there's anything on the market that deals with the latency issue yet.
Well, it's there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's probably a couple of years away at the earliest before somebody manages, and whoever does it's going to be a very wealthy individual. But until now, I think the only thing you can do is if you're taking a group of children, so first violin sectional or something, an orchestral rehearsal, sectional rehearsal rather, you will play the part, and they will shut their microphones off and play along with you, because they'll be able to listen to you. And I think that's the only way that you can successfully use that. Is that right, Nicole?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. That's definitely the best way. If you've got a group there, you know, you can be watching them, at least checking under the bow going in the right direction. Hey, it's a start, and you can tell a lot. And to be honest, at this point, I personally feel it's getting people keeping playing. It's getting them still loving doing it, still joining in, and they will get a lot of satisfaction by playing along with you, even though you can't necessarily teach them in a group like that. You know, if you're taking an orchestra sectional, for instance, you know, you could play a little bit on YouTube showing a great orchestra playing it. You could talk about the piece. You could talk about, you know, the history of it and some great performances, some amusing stories about it, and then show them how to play a little bit of it. And then they try and play along with either you or the YouTube video. So things like that, that's what I've had its success with so far.
My worry with things like Jamulus is you can spend an awful lot of time and effort trying to make it work, when in fact there's an inherent problem, i.e. the latency, which stops it working. And Simon's made a point that he feels that, you know, even with optical fiber might solve latency, but, you know, even then, you know, we've got to go a lot further forward to get rid of latency to a point where we can rehearse music successfully live. over the internet. It's a tough one.
We
and
have
there are, you know, there are workarounds, but you know, I think it's worth weighing up whether you want to spend hours and hours trying to get something to work, which may not even then come to, when you come to it, actually do anything useful.
Yeah, we have actually had a lot of questions, Steve, from people asking about multi-tracking. Oh, it's a 4-letter word, isn't it now?
Yeah.
It was all very exciting the first lockdown. Now we're like, oh, really?
Right.
Multi-tracking?
Yeah.
But it still is kind of one of our big tools, really, isn't it? To create.
Yeah, I mean, I did a lot of collaborative video editing in last year, and everybody was doing those collaborative videos, and it's great. But even with those, there's a lot of things you've got to get right, because they can be an absolute pig's ear if you're not careful, because you've got to have people in time. And I had, I won't mention any names, but for one organization, I did at least 2 videos where somebody both times just didn't get it and didn't use the click track, the guide track for the collaborative video, and just thought, oh, I can just play, I can just record it, and somehow magically the person editing will make it fit. And of course it's impossible. So you know, there are always problems with these things, and the collaborative video thing is great, but it's not like rehearsing, really.
No.
I did have one amateur orchestra who did a collaborative video, but rather than playing individually, they mimed to a concert recording they'd already made. I thought that was a little bit of a cheat, but there you go.
Well, I'm really hoping once Steve has drunk a lot of that alcohol behind him on the wall, that we can persuade him to do a webinar on this kind of thing, perhaps to share some of your knowledge. Would you be up for that, Steve? Putting you
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, you know, there's lots of things that you can do, but I think having done 3 Zoom concerts last year, but also some Facebook Live streams and things as well, you know, there's questions about the way you interact with an audience when you're doing something online, and Zoom is great for that because you have them in the boxes, you can see that there are people there, but the sound quality isn't good, you know, and so on. Yeah, multi-tracking things and recording things at home is all possible, but quite complicated. I'm just going to keep and see what Valerie was asking about students with backing tracks. About she finds it hard to hear what they're doing over Zoom when they're using a backing track, which I can totally understand. Some of the settings that Nicole, that you were talking about at the beginning, might well help that if the student didn't have those, or you didn't have those set, Val, that might help, because again, a backing track might be seen in certain circumstances to be background noise. So I think with the right settings, you would get the best possible, with the right options, you would get the best possibility of it working on Zoom. But it may be that you want to get the student to record it privately onto a YouTube video or something and put it up privately that you can listen to at a separate time. Nicole, you were going to suggest something?
What you can do there is, if you have the backing track on the computer, you can then share the computer sound. If you go to the sharing options, you can just share the computer sound, and then they hear it completely clearly then, and they can also hear you speaking. That was a very weird thing with your teacup disappearing there, Steve.
Oh, yeah, that's my great. You see, that's the lack of green screen, you know, or perhaps it's just the alcohol. I'm not sure.
Simon Wiki, hi Simon. Simon Wiki's pointing out that the backing tracks should be run from the student's computer. Yes, of course, ideally, because then they're going to be playing in time with them. Although I've become a bit of an expert at hearing everything half a bar late and working out if they're still in time. Very confusing, but I have got a skill for that now.
Well, we are string players. We always play slightly behind everybody else.
Alison, sorry, Nicole.
The question here, I think Sarah will be possibly great to answer. Rebecca Palmer, hi Rebecca. She says, regardless of latency issues, is anyone rehearsing string quartets or ensembles for school groups and has ideas? Sarah, have you got some thoughts on that?
Well, I did a bit of that last time, and to my horror, this time I have been asked to record it and put it together. So heart instantly sank, because I don't have the magic putting together fairy to help me. So what I've decided to do, before I come on to the rehearsing, I'm going to just do an audio, try and put the audio together rather than jump in at the deep end and do the video as well. Steve, do you think that's acceptable? And maybe have a nice picture of them just to get started, because I think doing the video as well is quite hard, isn't it?
Yes,
And
Yes.
I think starting just with the audio, so that's a separate thing to talk about. But I think so I've chosen. I think the thing is you've got to choose pieces. Wouldn't you agree, that don't have a lot of rubato and stuff in them, because it's a nightmare. Don't you agree? The beginner entry level, I feel. So I've chosen, for example, I've chosen a fast movement of a Telemann 4 violin thing, and I'm going to give them a click track and give them, and so that at least we can all rehearse from the same point. I'm going to do what Nicole said for the first rehearsal this week. I'm going to play each part and they play along with me their part. So I play them all. And then as they get their confidence, I'm going to get them to play their part and the others play with their part. So they get used to hearing the individual, was the lead part. And the thing that worked well last term was we talked quite a lot about practice techniques of a tricky bit, and they quite liked that. And I tried to get them to come up with ideas themselves of why is this hard? What can we do? What are standard techniques for getting this better? And I did that quite a lot in youth orchestra sectionals. We did a lot on practice techniques, which kids seemed to like. And I tried to get them to come up with ideas rather than me always launching forth in the hope that they would take some of them on. And then sometimes you can get just playing along with the different parts.
Yeah. Could I just add to that, Sarah? I think obviously the guide track is the click track rather is we all know we're all following that, but the subtle version of that is the guide track, is where if there is rubato, you can talk through the track. And I know having done a few of these videos with Steve, that Steve always prepares a fantastic guide track for us. So it really is, it could be, right, everybody get ready, we're a bar in, we've got, get your bow at the heel, you can sort of narrate around the clicks as well. And I think that can be quite helpful.
Also, one of the things with the click track, a lot of people think quite negatively about click tracks because they assume a click track is a metronome click that is fixed at a certain speed. And one of the techniques I use quite a lot in things is to actually play a part of the piece. So, for instance, for the part play project that Phil and I do, I recorded all the 44 Bartok violin duos, playing both parts myself. And of course, there's lots of changes of tempo and rubato and all sorts of things in there. So what I would do as a guide track is I would play through one of those parts, but where there were rests, I would just play relevant quavers or semiquavers or crotchets that hopefully were in the right key with the right tempo. So it's like making a metronome. So you would end up with this horrible part that was part violin part and part made up through the rests. But it meant that when I was then playing along with that, it had the shape that I wanted it to have in terms of the tempo changes. And so it's worth, if you're going to work something with pupils where you don't want them to be stuck doing a thing to an exact, crotchet 120, it's worth doing something like that. It gives you a little bit more scope, but it takes a bit more time to prepare to do that. If anyone wants any more ideas about that, I don't know how clear I was with that. If anyone likes the idea but didn't understand a word I said, feel free to email me or whatever.
And the other thing which I sort of made a rod for my own back, because I suggested that when we got going with our pieces, I recorded myself playing a part, not with Steve's very clever ideas in the middle. I didn't do that. I just counted, I'm afraid, rests. But I think yours is much more inspired. But I then asked them to record themselves playing along and send it back to me. Now, I felt obliged to say worthy words about all these recordings. So I ended up with, I thought, oh God. But then I thought, well, I'm not traveling anywhere and I've got, da. So I thought, well, I will do this. And then at the beginning of the next rehearsal, you can then feed back. Yeah, you know exactly what people can and can't do. And then you can just have a sort of beginning of lesson when you talk about, how we're getting on. And a lot of people are struggling with this bit or this technical bit or da. And then you can sort of build a sort of rehearsal round the feedback from what you've heard yourself from the little recordings, and they did quite like doing that. So that could be one idea. You could say, I'd like everyone to record letter A to B and send that to me for next week or something like that.
I wondered if we could just really quickly go to a non-techie question, but one quite interesting. Debbie Diamond. Hi, Debbie.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that one.
Yeah, I wonder if Phil could take this one. She's asking, are there any loopholes for allowing certain students with special needs to come to the house for face-to-face lessons? Do we know anything about that? Is that just not?
Well, I think, you know, we have to be quite pragmatic about this, and to be honest, not look for loopholes. I don't think we should be teaching face-to-face whatever at the moment. I mean, that's certainly the government guidance, and with this new strain of the virus, you know, greatly increasing the risk of sort of spreading. I think I appreciate it's really frustrating for everybody. We're all human and want that contact, especially for some pupils who may not be able to, you know, attend a Zoom lesson or a Skype lesson. But I'm afraid we mustn't take these risks. That's the bottom line. Sorry to be so negative, but that is, in fact, a positive.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm sadly there's nothing we can do about it, I don't think.
Yeah. We got a question here from Pam Redmond. Hi, Pam. She's asking, this is a violin-y question. Well, I presume violin. Maybe not. Can you recommend studies for youngsters, grade 5 or 6 bow technique? She says she likes Mary Cohn's technique takes off. Technique takes off. Technique takes off. But she needs a bigger variety of pieces at a similar level. Sarah, do you know anything that can help Pam?
Well, I don't know if you know the Doffline series. The reason I like those is because everything's very short and for busy people, and you can say, hey, it's only 3 lines, and loads of them have duets as well, so you can do your little technical bit and then there's a lovely duet. So Doffline, as far as I remember, Doffline 3 is, I think, 3rd and 2nd position, so Doffline 4 would be, I think, 4th position and 5th, and they have bowing as well, but they do really work, and because they're short, they're sort of bite size. I call them bite size. I call them my 5-minute wonders, and the fact that they have little duets with them, I think is very. They do a lot of folk songs. A lot of it is folk song based, so I think they're quite useful.
Thanks, Sarah. That's great. A couple of little questions here about Zoom. Alison Balfour Paul. Hi, Alison. She's saying, is it obvious how to get into Zoom settings? When you've been using Zoom, yes, it is, but no, it's not obvious at all. So you've got 2 types of settings. You've got the settings when you're in the meeting, and that's the arrow next to the picture of the microphone at the bottom of your screen right now. If you click on that arrow, your pop-up box appears and you click on audio settings at the bottom of that. But there's also in your account settings, like so how to set up your meetings, and that's what we were talking about, whether to mute somebody when they come in. So if you go on a web browser to zoom.us and you sign in with your email and your password, it will show you your whole Zoom account, and you go to my account, top right hand corner of the page, and then you will see on the left it says profile and settings and things like that. You go into settings and it will show you, you can set all these things. You can set things like having a waiting room for pupils who are early, and you can have, you know, mute everybody when they come in, don't let them share files, do let them share files, all these kind of things, screen sharing options as well. So just go through them and have a read. It's fairly well laid out, so you should be able to manage it. Julian,
yeah, somebody asked if the waiting room was the paid Zoom, full Zoom account.
Right, yeah. I don't think it is, no. I think it's actually one of those settings.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, with the paid accounts, you only need a paid account if you have more than 2 people in the room and the session is longer than 40 minutes. So if it's 2 of you in the room, you can go on as long as you like. If it's 3 people in the room, you would get cut off after 40 minutes, but you could just hop back in again afterwards. I mean, you know. So you don't have to fork out for it. But Gillian Tarleton was also asking about screen sharing YouTube items. She said it wasn't working as well as it used to. Check first of all, Gillian, for updates. And then when you go to share screen, make sure you click on the share screen and a pop-up box appears. At the bottom left, it says share computer sound. You have to tick that and then share the YouTube window, the Google Chrome window. Make sure that's ticked, otherwise the sound won't come through very well. Sorry, Steve, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say, I think the two or three sort of questions in the chat that are linked to rehearsing chain music and stuff like that. And I think also that Sheila says that collaborative videos have really kept her groups going. I think that is one way, definitely one way forward. And I think if you're prepared to spend the time working out how to get the best results from the collaborative videos, And don't forget that for a collaborative video, if you're going to make something that you want to enthuse the students, they don't have to record. First of all, they don't have to record the sound and the video at the same time. So you can ask them, if you've got a guide track that they're working to, you can say, right, get into your quietest, nicest sounding room with the best microphone placement that you can, with whatever gear you've got, record the sound best you can, and then go outside, find it. Well, better be careful about going outside. Go in your garden, find a fun background in your house, find something that's more interesting to do the video, and play again to the guide track. But don't worry about the sound. And the person editing it can use the sound, but from one, and the video from another. So that way you can potentially get slightly better results for a little more effort, and it might as well keep the student interested, because maybe they're interested in trying to see what nice, interesting video backgrounds they can get. So that's one way of doing these things. And as many of you will know, just briefly, because this is an Esther thing, it's not Par Play. Phil and I have this thing called Par Play, and again, for doing quartets and things online, you can use that as the basis to record things as well. So like a pre-built guide track. And if anyone wants to know more about that, just email Phil or I at some point. But I think the collaborative video thing, we've all maybe had a few too many of them. I've edited a few too many of them in the last 12 months, but it is a nice way forward, because you can get some surprisingly good results. Because what I found, particularly with a couple of adult amateur groups that I worked with on it, people were really hating recording their parts because they didn't like the sound they were making on their own in their front room. Who does? But with a little bit of careful putting together of these things, not cheating in any way, but when you put 15 lots of violins that individually don't sound like you'd really want to pay to go to a concert to hear them, perhaps, you put 15 of those together, you put a little bit of reverb on, sounds great. And people actually come out of it, I think, feeling more positive in many cases about their playing, which is what we want at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Steve, could I ask, if somebody's going to have a go at doing this, they're either going to try it on a PC or a Mac. So, and it's better if it's free before they invest in anything. Well, I mean, I'm guessing for Mac we could use iMovie.
Yeah.
But do you have any knowledge about what we could use for PC?
I don't, because I don't use PCs, but I feel sure that there is an equivalent iMovie free Windows Movie Maker, whatever program.
Yeah.
But I would have to research that, because I don't know. I mean, Sharon's asking in the Q&A window what software possibly me or whoever uses for collaborative video projects. I mean, I'm on Mac, so I use Logic Pro for the audio editing to do an audio mix, and I use Final Cut Pro for the video editing. And
Simon Wookie, and he's an expert. I know Simon. He thinks that PC Premiere Elements is good. And
there we go. Great.
Well,
Excellent. Excellent.
Is it free, Simon? Could you pop that in the chat, or is it something we have to?
Do you know what? I might just bring Simon in for a second. Simon, the Fount of Knowledge Wookie. I'm going to make you a panelist, Simon. Da, da, da. Here he comes. Simon, can you unmute yourself and switch your camera on, please?
I will switch my camera on.
Hi. Hi,
well,
Simon.
I'm truly honoured to be brought into this panel.
You look like you're in a radio station.
Hello and welcome to Radio 4. This is a shipping forecast.
Fine, Dogger.
I use a Mac as well, so GarageBand, Logic, iMovie, and Final Cut Pro, obviously, as Steve said. On the PC, you can use Premiere Elements. Obviously, you can use Pro Tools, but that's very expensive. But the Cubase for audio editing are they're very much cheaper, and you can get a very low-cost Cubase for the audio editing as well.
Yeah, there are a lot of free audio programs.
Audacity, of course, is very free and very useful.
Somebody just recommended to me this week. Does anyone know about Resolver? They said that was very good.
DaVinci Resolve. It's pretty high tech, pretty heavyweight. It's expensive and it's good.
You can free one.
But Premiere does it.
Yeah.
Great, Simon. Thank you very much for joining
All
us.
right. I'll say goodbye, shall I?
Yes, next time put a virtual background on. Very good. Very good.
Don't tempt me.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a virtual background. He's in his kitchen, really.
Wonderful. Great. I hope that answers your questions for collaborative projects there. We've got a question here. I feel for you, Liz Holland. She says, any idea to keep pupils interested who aren't able or wanting to do online lessons, particularly young pre-grade 1? Yes, it's very difficult, isn't it? Does anyone else want to take this one, or I can?
Not my area of expertise.
I mean, Sarah, do you have thoughts? I've got some thoughts on it.
I mean, I don't think doing a complete beginner online is a good recipe for either side of the connection, really. So I've not said I will do that. Pre-grade 1, I think you can do things as long as a parent is there. I think you've really got to probably have a parent helping and taking notes and being very supportive and saying, no, that's your left hand, darling, you've got your right hand, and all this sort of stuff. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you could bear in mind, it could be a music lesson rather than necessarily one on their specific instrument for the whole time. You know, you could touch on their instrument at some point in the lesson, but you could play musical games, you know, make...
Kate Skeet recommends she's going to try some drop-in sessions for the beginners. And says there's lots of Vamoosh open string pieces, which is very good. Drop-in online, obviously, she says.
Thank you for confirming that, Kate. No, absolutely. I think mixing it up is definitely, and if they see other kids that they maybe even know from school and stuff, then that can be a good something.
Nicole, Rebecca asks, how do you add a click track during a Zoom lesson? I mean, I'm assuming that you would just attach a file and send it, or you would send it before the lesson so they can practice with it or whatever. Have you got any suggestions on that?
I get them to put a metronome on, and I get them to do a metronome app on their phone at their end. They put it on and they play to it at their end. It's I would never send like an altered click track, you know, slowing down and speeding up anyway. Bothered. But I think a metronome, I mean, it's been really brilliant. I did start off putting the metronome at my end and then anticipating that they were going to be slightly late. And then it occurred to me they could just have it at their end.
Yeah.
So free metronome apps, they don't cost anything. So as long as they've got a smartphone or something there, then they can do.
And Debbie makes a good point about teaching beginners online. She finds it's fine as long as the parent is actively helping, which is a very good point as well, because it's great to involve the parents anyway, because when you're not doing the lesson, you want them there in the background enthusing the youngster anyway.
Yeah.
And in a very bored moment when I was feeling sorry for myself in the pouring rain, I turned out a cupboard, discovered my nail varnish, painted my nails. When you teach with painted nail varnish, then all the little ones can see your finger movement much more clearly, I found.
Different colour for each finger?
I was going to say exactly that, Nicole. Yeah.
Why would you not?
Yeah.
Love it. Shoko, hi, Shoko. You're asking about recorded exams, online exams. I've done a few of those now this autumn. Gosh, there was something else. But wonderful. I mean, what a lifesaver, right? So she's asking, when a student can't do the recording at home but can attend the Zoom lesson, can you record the Zoom lesson? Now, I don't know if you disagree with me, Steve, but I would say don't record it through Zoom. What you could do is record it while they're having a Zoom lesson, but get them to record it on their phone. Remember that the microphone in the phone is very good. The speakers are usually duff. So it'll record it really well. If you listen back to it through the phone, it'll sound rubbish. But if you listen back to it on headphones or, you know, decent hi-fi, you'll realize actually the sound's really very good. If they played well. So definitely, Shoko, send them your backing track, but don't record it through Zoom, because you are going to have possible latency issues. You're going to have, I don't mean latency, I mean where sometimes Zoom catches up with itself. You know, if the signal goes off, it will slow everything down and then speed it up to catch up. And suddenly you think your pupil can't count, and they can. So be careful of that. I hope that makes sense, Shoko.
Also, those smartphone microphone settings is you can, there are a range of options, aren't there? So you can click on the CD quality one. So you make sure you've got the very best setting that the software will allow.
Yeah. But I found we did about 3 or 4 music teachers board exams after we'd done our webinar. I thought I'd give that a go, and it was great. And I found the feedback really positive. Just wanted to say, actually, you know, the way it's quite clinical normally, which is helpful too. But I was really encouraged, especially during this period of lockdown, that the examiners were in every case really friendly. It was almost like they were talking to you. And I thought, well done, music teachers board, for that, actually, because I think especially for younger kids, that's really, really encouraging. Yeah. Do we have any other questions, Steve? Have you seen any more?
No, I think we're almost up
done
with things in the chat at the moment, which is
Right.
great. And obviously the question about, you know, what software you use for collaborative videos can just go on forever, because there's a ton of it. I'm very happy to anybody out there. You can email me, editor@estherstrings.org.uk, if there's any more detail you want on any of this stuff. And I guess the same with all of us, really. Our emails are all very easy to find, and we're very happy to try and help if we can.
So listen, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing Zoom webinars for you all through 2021, probably once every 2 weeks, we think. And so we would love to know what you need them to be about. We've got lots of ideas ourselves, but we would love to know other specific things. And I think very clearly through this conversation we've had today that we'll be getting Steve on board as soon as possible to do one on those collaborative videos. But anything, you know, thinking about the exam repertoire, say for the Trinity syllabus, for example, or teaching people with special needs, or whatever it is you want, whatever, if you want to know about handy tips for painting your fingernails, whatever it is, please do let us know. You can email us any of the email addresses through the site, and email me, whatever you like. And I also wanted to say, just Chris Wiggins, I've just seen that you're in here. I can't share the files through the chat window for some reason, Chris. So what I'm going to do is send it on an email to everybody afterwards. Chris has written these pieces, like I mentioned at the beginning, that he'd love to let you all have a look at.
And Chris has also pointed out that he agrees about parents being there for beginners, but he's having problems getting things into the chat window, so it's appeared as a question. So just to say that we've got agreement on that, and I think, you know, I think we would all agree with that. I think you've got to get the parents and guardians interested as well, because that really helps keep kids interested and for between one lesson and the next.
Yeah, if you give the parents a job to do, that's always really good. So especially if they're, for instance, playing note bingo. So
yeah,
you know, you've got
I think something's been started, Sarah, with the nail painting.
I'm very excited. It just shows you, if you turn out a cupboard in lockdown, you don't know where it's going to lead.
Yeah, I think we could see all sorts of things here. Whole heap of books about what colour you paint it. Perhaps whether you have a little gradient. Yeah.
I'm going to speak to my daughter as soon as this finishes. See what she can come up with for me.
Lovely. It's lovely to have all your chat today, guys. It's been really nice to talk to you, and we shall see you really soon. We'll be in touch. Please be in touch with us. Thank you very much, Phil and Sarah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.